creatives, community, kind folks out there. Hello, welcome to RPG with DBJ. This is World Building Wednesday, Hump Day, and we are continuing our weekly theme about using the Fey and Fairies and folklore and pixies and sprites and all of those kind of very classic and ancient and wondrous and chaotic spirit woodland or wild creatures that we've talked about. So, of course, World Building Wednesday, we've got to, build a world and use all the information we've gathered from that we talked about on Monster Monday and Tips and Tricks Tuesday. So I thought we would go into that today and give a little kind of shape what we're doing, give some hints, build a world where the motivating factor are using these Fey or Fey style creatures. And of course, tomorrow is Third Pillar Thursday. Third pillar, something I hold dear, which is the third pillar of gaming. And of course, Future Friday. And, are there fairy tales in the future? Seems like it doesn't quite go together, but I think there's something that we can pull out of it to end our theme. Okay, so today, World Building Wednesday. I think it behooves us not to, if you're going to use the Fey and Fey style creatures, pixies and sprites and those kind of things, to develop some kind of folklore for your world, that these things have been around for a long time and have been interacting with the public, the common man, the population, and established some of these behaviors, whether they don't seem quite human on a particular level. They do have a motivation, and the idea of creating these interactions and these promises, maybe, or such, and leaving them scattered around like rumors in your world. Dead Man, the Storyteller, says, do like the authors of The Magicians did, the television show, make the basics of 50 plus worlds and flesh out the active world more as needed. Yeah, exactly. I mean, just even if it's something as simple as like in the Arctic land or something like that, someone says, every full moon, we lock ourselves away inside because we can't look upon the face of the spirit creatures that wander the earth or something, or leaving out the cookies and milk so that the little spiritual creatures can clean the home, when the men are away at war or whatever, or children that talk about have little nursery rhymes, and the little nursery rhymes, if they say these nursery rhymes, it keeps them safe from being abducted, while they play in the woods or something. And you could just basically sprinkle that information without necessarily having to flesh out the entire thing. But like Dead Man mentions, make the basics of how the world operates, just little hints, little tips and tricks. And if the players decide to make a left turn and go into the desert and decide to do a complete 180 and then go into the swamps, and all these places have these Fey creatures, then you could go into far more detail and such. A wild Rickard appears, yeah, and with a floppy hat and floppy boots, right? But we did mention that there are plenty of Fey creatures that are quite brutal. So although a lot of fairy tales have been geared more towards children, maybe because as we get older, and adults as we get older, we start to drop those things. But in a fantasy in a fantasy setting, it doesn't mean those things go away. It could be the adults still believe those things, but maybe socially they look around at each other as if they're not supposed to believe in the fairy tales, but it, inside they know the fairy tale still exists, but outwardly to prove to each other that they've grown past it. They stop saying the nursery rhymes and they stop leaving the milk out. They it's like a collective, uh, not insanity, but like a collective morality not to honor these fake creatures, and maybe that's where a lot of the trouble starts. Also, if you really want to, like, other than just using the stat blocks of like a sprite or dryad or pixie or something like that, be far more willing to reskin the creatures that already exist. Dead Man brings up superstition. Yes, absolutely. The walking under a ladder, breaking a mirror, stepping on a crack. In today's world, a sprinkling of salt. Um, when someone, even if someone sneezes, you say bless you. A lot of these superstitions existed in a weird way because there was some at the time for themselves, they felt there was some truth to it. So you could add some of these behavioral elements to your world, like I don't know, before someone walks into a door, they draw a circle in the air, or when they greet a stranger, they cross both their arms over their chest, or they place one palm over one eye or something. Like you could make up these things, just make up a bunch of little random gestures or behaviors. Before someone eats, they sprinkle a little salt on the ground or something, right? Or they bow their heads and hold the palms of their hands to the sky to give thanks to the Fey Lords or something. And although not that all of them have to be true, but this could give a hint as the players have traveled far away from their home to these other foreign lands that, boy, they do these strange they have these little traditions, these little superstitions, but I've never had to worry about that. And in this world, maybe there was some truth to it in the past, and it could be coming back again. Rickard says, if the fairy tale exists and you find yourself face to face with the thing, it cautioning you against following the tale makes sense. What's the worst that can happen? Exactly, right. It's the sailors thing where the sailors, I don't know, I'm just making an example, like dropping a copper coin over the railing of the sailing ship before it leaves dock, right? And when you ask the sailor, why'd you do that, and the sailors are like, because I want, I want to have good tidings. Like I'm giving thanks to the sea gods or the sea spirits so that we have a safe trip. and it's like, someone asks them like, well, you're a pretty reasonable person. Why do you do it? It's like, well, what if I don't and it's true, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I absolutely agree with you, Rickard. And that could be, I understand that a lot of games don't have that element in it, but it could be the presenting the milk and cookies to the adversary may be a reasonable thing to do for that adversary to parlay with you. If your low level group is being attacked by monstrous beasts or something, and I don't know, you leave an offering at the willow tree or something like that for the fey creatures, and they see the offering, that they see that you've laid down this offering at the willow tree, having them stop and sniff it or whatever, and then maybe the pixies that control these monstrous beasts come out of nowhere and they go, oh, okay, like that might be a way for the PCs to introduce themselves to these fey creatures, and that could be part of the world where they're introduced to these other places. Now Rickard says, in reverse, I found it interesting that in the world of like Vampire Hunter D, the world was ruled by vampires for a long while, and they made it so that humans couldn't remember the cautionary tales. Ooh. I remember Vampire Hunter D. I haven't seen it's been a while since I've seen the anime, and I loved Vampire Hunter D, but it's been wow, late 80s, mid 90s. I think I've seen it then. But yes, it could be that the Fey creatures, if you've wanted them, instead of them hiding out of sight of humanity, if they've actually enslaved humanity, or in essence trained humanity to do things. I'm sorry, I was looking at the chat. Trained humanity to how do I say this? To feed them. For example, the idea of the Fey creatures stealing away children or replacing children could be a thing that they've done for years and years and years, to the point where they don't question it anymore. Like, it may not be out of fear, it could be just out of tradition that they hand over their children, and then they raise some of these Fey children as their own. Named by the Namer says, I just got the soundtrack today. Not sure what you mean. uh, uh, Rickard says the books go into how even if a human could figure out that a cross was effective, they would actively forget that it had worked after they tried it out. Now that could be kind of interesting, where like, for example, in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, there's no like the Fey creatures don't have fairy tale limitations, but you could include that in the game, right? Where with the sprinkling of salt around the home, the hanging of um, a lock of braided hair at the window, or what have you, leaving a bowl of spoiled milk out or something like that. Oh, the soundtrack to Vampire. That's what you meant. Named by the Namer mentions the Vampire Hunter D soundtrack. Sorry about that. I was just like, soundtrack. What am I? What? That's my own confusion, not you, man. That's cool. And it could be that these limitations, like the idea that trolls are vulnerable to acid and fire, it could be that in your world these other Fey creatures are vulnerable to these things, or at least temporarily placated by certain things, whether it's they can't cross a salted mark, or um something silly or weird could be that a human that closes their eyes, remember how kids used to be like, if they close their eyes you become invisible. That could be a thing where if you close your eyes and cover your eyes, that you become invisible to them, or something weird like that. And it could be based on the different types of Fey creatures, or maybe even whatever courts they belong to or something. And it could be fun to have the PCs have to uncover those fairy tales, those superstitions, to use it against them, like you mentioned in Vampire Hunter D, where the people forget that crosses and garlic and sunlight and stakes actually harm vampires, which makes a lot of sense. Dead Man, a Storyteller, brings up Lost Girl. Lost Girl did that well, he says. And I remember seeing the first season, but the television show Lost Girl is an entire show based around the modern day version of characters who represent a lot of these fairy tales. They have a number of those fairy tale type abilities, and a lot of those the fairy tale abilities are very social, and I think it would it would behoove us not to allow a lot of that social interaction. The main character, who's basically a succubus. Well, yeah, she's a succubus. Like, she gains power and healing from sexual interaction, whether it's male or female. Some of that could have bled over into mortal society, where there are people who are kind of how elves are looked at today in role playing, as opposed to the more barbaric and mysterious elves before the Tolkien era. There could be people who have Fey blood in them, and so, like, the idea of sorcerers and having abilities could come from that, as well as like the wild magic could come from having Fey blood. Warlocks, of course, could have a Fey patron, and maybe much more of the background of your world could be Fey wise. Like, for example, the gods in your world, or like the clerics in your world, could just be worshiping these avatars of the Fae. Like, it doesn't need to be, a cleric. There are no rules for clerics specifically, giving worship to God. Those are to the gods. Those are our, flavorful things. So maybe a wizard, to learn certain spells, has to go to a Fae court or beseech a certain one of the elemental nature gods or something, and learn their spells from them, as opposed to having spell schools. So yeah, absolutely, you could reskin things. Rickard goes on to say, metagaming is also a nice thing when it comes to fairy tales. If they come across a door with a thick salt line drawn in front of it, the players will expect demons, even if none are there. Yeah, and you can absolutely play on that a lot, especially if they come across it. If one NPC, I don't know, one NPC before going to bed spins around 3 times and then, gets into their sack and pulls up their covers, and then they see this happen 2, 3, 4 times, the PCs are going to like scratch their head, like, why is it just before people go to bed or wake up in the morning, they spin around 3 times before starting their day or going to sleep, right? So and eventually, of course, they're going to question someone, or someone's going to mention why the PCs aren't doing it. Before you walk into a building, everyone rubs the nose of the small statue, of the carved satyr or something, right? And when just before they walk in the building, you see everybody rubs it, gives it a little head rub or gives it a little tummy rub and walks inside. And the PCs don't do it. They're like, that's stupid. That's just a superstition. And then something happens to the PCs or someone that the PCs know, that it gives a lot of it may encourage the PCs to start acting in the same way. And then they start learning those superstitions. Like, it becomes rather normal for them. Just like in our reality, like, now I understand that, like, for example, when people sneeze and someone says, bless you, that wasn't necessarily fairy tales. That came from the fact that people were dying from diseases by, the hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands, right? Now, in our gaming world, that could or may be blamed on the Fae, or, just like vampires or something as well. So yeah, you could actually introduce those kind of things when someone, I don't know, someone trips and falls, and someone else, places their fist over their forehead before picking them up. And then the next time somebody else has this little small accident, like, oh, I stubbed my toe. And everyone's like taking their fist and putting it up to their forehead before helping them out. After a while, people are going to go, PCs might, maybe I should put my fist in my forehead when someone drops something or trips and falls or something. Like, why are we doing this again? And other ones, I don't know. We just do it. We do it all the time. Rickard says, or say you have a cold iron cross that seems to have been used to ward off something. The players might expect vampires due to the cross, but it's the cold iron that warded off the Fae. Yeah, I agree with you on that. And you could even play with those tropes where all the evidence seems to lead to like the undead, or like dragons or fiends or something, celestials or whatever. And but basically, it's all of these disparate superstitions that are actually part of the Fae. Even the cold iron thing, like you said, they may not be paying attention to the cold iron; they're paying attention to the cross, and the cold iron just happens to be the symbol that it takes the shape of, because it might be just easy to carry it, or to pin it to the front door, or have it hang from your rucksack or something like that, right? Also, because of the long lives of Fae creatures, they've been around long enough to have interacted with people's relatives, their ancestors, their grandparents, great grandparents, and going on, tens, hundreds, thousands of years in the past. So if you really want to make it personal, some of these fake creatures may have known some of the player characters' families, some of their ancestors in the past, and you could make it really personal where maybe they know that they've been around when the player characters were being raised as a child. They've seen them play in the woods and stuff and remembers the songs they used to sing, or they hold on to small items, maybe toys or weapons from their ancestors, or even magic that their ancestors had, and the PCs may find out that in order to recover it or to reclaim something from their ancestral heritage, that these fake creatures remember it. Also, you can have a lot of stories where, like I was mentioning with the social part of it, you can have a lot of stories where the fake creatures don't understand the moral repercussions of what they're doing, such as the classic kidnapping of children, or I don't know, making love potions or things like that and selling them and stuff, or having glamours cast on gold, the pot of people going after the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow kind of thing. There could be these people are being manipulated by the fake creatures, and the fake creatures don't understand that humanity lives by different rules. And so having to parlay with the fake creatures, like, listen, you might not want to keep kidnapping children, where the fake creatures are like, I don't see the problem. They're raising our kids, we're raising theirs. I don't see what the issue is. Not knowing what or not even considering what the ramifications are, or if they're far more chaotic and or evil, the closer they lean to that, they might just have fun watching people scramble for 50 years and go into deep depressions about their kids that are gone, but to them they're just like, having fun with it. Ricker says, "Ooh, evil Fae with a grudge who sung to the PC when they were young, that triggers something as they face years down the line." Yeah. You know what? And I couldn't quite get there, but thank you for going there, Ricker. Like, that could be a thing, right? Where if this little fey creature sung, little lullabies to put the child to sleep, and then that child grows up to be one of the PCs, and maybe the fey creature's pissed off, like, you stole a toy from me, and the adult PC is like, what are you talking about? It's like, when you got to the age of 7, you stole a toy from me and my family, and I want that toy back. And the PC is like, dude, I was a kid then. Why are you pissed off? You know what I mean? But that could be a real thing. Or even the fake creatures might even beseech some of the player characters, like, look, don't you remember when we used to play around and hang out? And the PCs are like, I thought you were an imaginary friend, right? I don't really remember you as being a real thing, but then you find out that they really were a real thing. Or just like a Dead Man brought up yesterday, the television show Unicorn, where you have this dark, deep, gritty cop, teaming up with a very, very funny blue unicorn, flying around his head as an imaginary friend, because that imaginary friend actually was the imaginary friend of his daughter, who happens to be gone and kidnapped. Right? You could have these fake creatures that are like, coming back to it's almost like what's the movie? The movie Ted, where, the teddy bear, right? Kid grows up with the teddy bear, gets older, leaves the teddy bear aside. The teddy bear is just like, please don't forget me, please. And that could, while truly you could do that with kids, if you want to do that in a role-playing game and not go the gritty path, it would be rather interesting for the fake creatures to go, you know what, you left me 22 years ago, and now that you're 30 years old, an adventurer, you need to keep to your promises. You promised we wouldn't go away from each other, and so I'm sticking around. So that would be really cool, especially if you could tie a number of abilities for the player characters. Like you here, player character skills and abilities and powers do not necessarily, if you want to flavor them, do not necessarily have to be just I cast a spell or I have stealth or something. They could be little gifts and trinkets from the Fey creatures themselves. So, for example, instead of casting a magic missile, they could be little flying pixies that, you know, little with little butterfly wings that fly after something with like razor wings and like slam into something. Or instead of the fighter having second wind and you just are tougher and gains, you know, the second wind, it could be a Fey creature that that you summon or goes into your mind or inhabits your body that brings you back. Is like, no, don't fall down now. Come on, buddy, get back up, and could be going on, you know, to help you fight another day, which would be kind of cool. Also, you could tie in the world with a ton of the little things that we tend to ignore. So, for example, for an assassin or an alchemist or apothecary type character that wants to gather, or even wizards to gather material components, they have to go out into the wild parts of the world and gather those components. And of course, guess who they have to parlay with? Some of the Fae. And the Fae may say, sure, I'll hand you over some bat guano, but you owe me a favor. And that can lead to other stories. Oh, you want some poison? Or you want some pixie powder for your sleep spell? Not a big deal. We'll give it to you. But now you owe us. And also, you could even tie in some other things too, as well. Like when PCs use magic, maybe it draws, maybe there's like the evil Fae or like hunters, or there could be in this world, magic is from the Fae, and there are an active group of people who are out to stop those who are using Fey magic. So if you use it, it's almost like a beacon that draws them towards you. And there are these hunters with dogs or, you know, midnight black cats. I love displacer beasts, you know, so you can have like displacer beasts as like trained animals hunting down people who cast this magic. And every time a player character casts magic, you know, maybe cantrips are 0 level, so they don't really do anything. But you start going like first, second, third level spells in your 5th edition game or whatever game system you're using. The more powerful abilities you use, the greater chance it's like do 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 do, and they smell it and they come. You know, these hunters, these proctors or enforcers go through the cities, you know, looking for Fey offenders almost to get them out of the cities because of maybe things that happened hundreds of years ago. And now they have these, you know, religious, it doesn't necessarily need to be religious, but it could be a religious organization that's out to rid the world of the Fey influences. Also, there could be, hey, kitty. Also, when it not just dealing with the social part, of course, we'll talk about this tomorrow, but the environmental part of it as well. I believe it was Prue that talked about the fact that, you know, we tend to default to the Fae being in wilderness, meaning like forests, but they do not necessarily need to be limited to that. They can be in Arctic or mountain areas, swamps, deserts, and things of that. So the further people go away from civilization, maybe the more wild the environment becomes. And so you could start breaking the world a little bit, right? It doesn't. So really, kitty. So you don't have to have a world where the world operates the way we know, whether it's geologically or ecologically or something. Maybe the further away humanity, the PCs, of course, they're adventurers, get away from society and humanity and where they've taken over, the further they get away, maybe things start going far more wild. So you could have the idea of walking through a swamp and literally the foliage does start to encroach on them and wrap them up, or that it seems as if they really, kitties, no fighting. You love each other. Sorry about that. And so it could be where, you know, rivers flowing backwards and waterfalls flowing up, and walking to a particular area and being transported to another place, whether it's literally going into the Feywild or going into a cave that's basically or a tree, a hollow in a tree that's an extra dimensional space, or fruits that have specific magical abilities. So instead of handing out magic items or something, or potions or scrolls, he sure is. A dead man and storyteller says your house elf is unhappy. Yeah, it seems to be because the elf on the shelf is making my cats go a little crazy today. I've got three of the little furry things, and when I get up in the morning, they get up in the morning. but yeah, you could really play with not having the natural world operate operate in a fantastical way as opposed to a modern day way. So if they want to go through a mountain pass, there could be elemental. It's no big thing for the elemental earth creatures to like come out of the background and ask for, I don't know, a favor or a riddle, solve a riddle or something. And instead of there being just simple rock slides, those rock slides could be how the elemental creatures attack the PCs, right? And they look humanoid and then they just crumble down on top of the PCs until they're defeated. But when they go back to society, it's like it was just we were attacked by a landslide and it felt like it was alive or something like that. That could be where some of these fairy tales come from. And then people back in the city are like, oh, it's dangerous out there. You don't want to go out there. The desert is a harsh place and you'll dehydrate, from the blazing sun. But when you go out there, the blazing sun might just be blazing fey creatures that are up in the sky and just blazing heat down on you when you walk along. And literally they could be following you along, blazing heat down on top of you like high noon, and making you sweat, and you're like trying to take your hand and like, why are you doing this to me? And the fiery fey creature in the sky might be like, you owe me, I don't know, you owe me something, a pint of your moisture must come to us or something like that. And it's like, well, what if we find water for you or whatever, or whatever the case may be, right? Also, you could have a play with challenges as well in your world building. So, for example, the ogres, trolls, bugbears, or something like that could be very much part of the Fey world. And instead of just I attack you and I hit it with my sword, they try to hit you with their javelin or whatever. It could be that they do arm wrestling, or they it could be a climbing contest to get to the highest peak, or climb a tree, or lift a so-called unmovable boulder, or rolling a boulder up a hill to challenge the PC. So you could have challenges be a way for the PCs to solve things, where to them, the Fey creatures, it's just a normal thing. Like, hey, have a drink with me. And if, PCs are like, I don't know if I want to drink that. And they're like, no. Let's drink. Okay, here's the deal. Have 3 drinks with me, and the first to pass out loses. And you can pass through here. If we pass out, our greatest, I don't know, carouser or whatever the case may be, from faction comes in with a big tankard of ale or something, and of course it's purple and green and bubbling, has sparks coming out of it, and it's like we each take up to 3 drinks and see who is overcome first. And so you're sitting down with the satyr and facing off, and then of course the dwarven PC steps forward and is like, I'll take the drink first, and they start drinking and making their saving throws or constitution rolls or whatever. And how fun could that be to get past these challenges and such, getting drunk, or I don't know, having your skin turn purple from the drinks, or shrinking down or what have you, which is also a great way to give out rewards, right? Instead of just handing out magic items, killing the creature and handing out magic items, it could be special fruits or special ingredients in the natural world. So instead of giving, I want to give my players healing potions. Well, let's give it a little bit more of a story, right? They could be special leaves or a nectar from a particular flower, or literally a fountain of youth, right? This fountain, there could be a small spring, and the PCs can, gather the water from the spring, and that spring becomes a healing potion. And of course, definitely having juicy fruits. Maybe they have a specific shelf life, or seeds, or a broken tree branch happens to be a wand. Um, you know, pinning a certain frond or flower to your uniform is the same as a magical ring or a scroll or something like that. So a great way to hand out, especially if you're a person who is like, you know what, I want to hand out magic items, but I don't want them to be overpowered, but I want to reward them because my players really want rewards. They could always be a bunch of these one and dones, the magical fountain of youth. The fountain stays there. So if the PCs leave, they're like, well, let's fill up our water skins and be done with it, right? And then they have to leave. Or, the magic tree branch that's a wand may only have 6 charges in it, and then the branch just rots away or something. Or it could be a flower that has 7 petals on it, and every time magic is used from it, one of the petals falls away. Or, and then you could have fun with a lot of those chaos magic items, like a bag of beans, robe of pockets, wand of wonder, deck of many things, that kind of stuff. And then you can even make up your own chaos magic. So, for example, like we mentioned before about using sorcerers that have chaos magic. It could be when the further they go into these regions, that chaos magic erupts from the PCs using magic, because the Fey creatures are just like, that's what it's like all the time. Also, you can change when the magic of the creatures that you have in your game, you could reskin them by having the source of their magic change all the time. So an elemental, let's say you have elemental fire, right? Maybe every round you roll a D8 and it changes to a different element. So one round it's fire, the next round it's lightning, the next round it's thunder, the next round it's acid, another round it's cold, right? You could play with that as well and have that happen in the background. So instead of a classic pit trap or something in the background, it could be static electricity, and the PCs have to worry about being hit by a bolt of lightning. And then next round, while they're fighting off the rogue orcs, and maybe even the orcs are like scared of the Fey creatures, you could have this like triangle of conflict where your player characters are fighting off the humanoids, like the bugbears or something, or the orcs or gnolls, and at the same time there's this like weird chaos energy floating around them. And so maybe they're being targeted by ball lightning, and the ball lightning goes past, and then all of a sudden a gout of fire shoots up from the ground, and then fairy lights go in the air and they might be charmed or something like that. Like, you could really take that to a different level. And like I said before about reskinning things, like you could have, let's take a Medusa, right? You could change a Medusa to make it just a fake creature. So instead of being petrified, like turning to stone, they become charmed and just stand there staring into the wild, like Sleeping Beauty, right? They fall asleep and they are eternally asleep, and they have to be awakened by a special ritual, or the magic kiss, right? The laying of a special flower, the blue rose that grows on the top of the mountain kind of thing, or whatever, to bring them back. So they don't turn to stone, they just become paralyzed or ensorcelled. And just reskin everything they have, like a Medusa has snakes in the hair. Well, instead of snakes, let's make it something else. I don't know. A cloak, a hag, an old hag could be a beautiful young girl that looks like a beautiful elven princess with a cloak of ravens, and the cloak of ravens is literally just a swarm of birds that you want to, give them as a, as an adversary in the game. And then when the swarm of ravens attacks the PCs or something, the ravens flow and then become this, feathered cloak that's on this elf that's really just a reskinned hag. So maybe I should do a whole series of reskinning. But anyway, my point being is that you can really, if you just allow yourself to just open yourself to more ideas and allow some of the really bizarre and craziness to let loose inside of you. And especially, I would absolutely positively gain a lot of these little things from your player characters. We all, just like in the chat, every one of us comes from a different part of the world. We have a different upbringing, and as kids, we remember different things. Step on a crack, broke your mama's back. 7 years bad luck if you break a mirror, or walk. It's bad luck to walk under a ladder. And I'm sure there's a ton more that I'm not remembering, or that each of us has come about in our own upbringing as a child. And so incorporating those into the game world and making those real will be kind of cool. Just like, who's playing in my game? And like, hey, here's your here's your homework when you make up your player character. By the way, come up with 3 fairy tales that you remember as a kid. And that's it. And in 5th edition, player characters start with a trinket, have that trinket have an important impact in this Fey world. The photograph, or I don't know if they're like photographs because you don't have photographs in D&D, but you understand what I'm saying. Like the small portrait, let's say, could be not a portrait of a family member. It could be a portrait of one of the Fey creatures, or in the portrait, in the background, you've always known this smudge and you can swear it's an image of something, but then you meet this Fey creature and realize it was always hanging around you when you were a kid and used to protect you as a kid. And that's where your special abilities came from. Even your PC rogue, maybe hiding in shadows, really could blend in with shadows and eventually becomes an ally of the Shadow Fey, right? That could be where they've grown. Like your arcane trickster, hey, you didn't really learn those. You didn't learn those as a regular skill. You learned them from being a kid, an orphan kid running on the streets, and learned them from some Fey creatures. And maybe as you got older, you just forgot about them. You're like, I just remember them hanging out with a bunch of friends, not realizing those friends actually lived in the shadow realm or something like that. And you could also have a cost for what players do. So when players cast their magic or summon their magic, they could be drawing it from a Fey world, or drawing that from the life force of one or more Fey creatures. And maybe they want to get that energy back, or you owe them for taking it from them. Or maybe as player characters cast more of this Fey magic, they are allowing portals to open up so that more of these Fey beings can get a foothold in the world. Kind of like the idea of a pyromancer using magical fire, which is literally opening up a pathway to the elemental plane of fire, right? The players might be opening up something to the Feywild or Fey realm or whatever you're using in your world. And little by little, they start, encroaching on things. Also, maybe player characters start earning little, I want to call them like Fey traits. So, for example, things like milk spoiling when they're around, or animals being upset around the player characters, or when the player characters walk, their footsteps burn behind them, or something like that. Maybe these little things, like the clothing that a PC wears over time starts to change into the color purple or something, right? There could be these little traits that are like non-issue, non-combat, but still are Fey related. Even the fighter in the group who doesn't have magic, their weapons and armory starts to turn black over time. And so someone else might find one of their blackened daggers, and it might become valuable or become a clue as they adventure, as these people who are these proctors that are against the Fey start to hunt down the player characters. Or it might even be an indication that they are loyal to or part of a Fey faction, and the PCs don't even know it. So as a game master, you might give them these little traits and then not tell them why they have the traits. And so there could be like a Fey war, and they're being pulled from one place to another. So yeah. Hey, kitty. Yeah. So anyway, guys, we haven't hit the hour mark, so I might cut this a little short, because my brain is kind of getting a little fuzzy coming up with these ideas. But basically, the idea, if you want to use Fey creatures in your world and you want to do some world building with them, don't be limited by stat blocks. Don't be limited by what's in a game. Absolutely, positively snatch everything you can from the superstitions that we have in our world, from the folklore we have in our world. If you just do a simple Google search, I mean, your top 10, Google searches are going to come up with some really nasty and bizarre things, and some of them are quite bloody and pretty macabre, right? I mean, it's one thing to have a monster out there that kills people. It's another thing to have them, I don't know, you rip out their hearts and use them for rituals, right? When Hansel and Gretel are kids that are being stuffed in the ovens and baked so that they become baked goods, that's pretty nasty. Despite the fact that it's like some kind of a infanticide, killing of children or whatever. It could be pretty bad. Also, the idea of children brings up the additional complication of having innocent people being manipulated or drawn into or having the power of the Fae as well. So instead of zombies and skeletons, there could be human beings in the world that are just ensorcelled, and they are like, they're in a state of bliss, and they could be like bliss zombies in a way, where they're just eternally happy, but they don't feel any pain, and they're trying to, grab the PCs and make the PCs, they're trying to spread their bliss to everyone else, and with a stupid like Joker smile plastered on their face or something. And if your players aren't murder hobos, they might be hesitant to want to hack up the old lady and the small children, and the innocent people that are being ensorcelled by these Fey creatures, right? So that could also be something else, being possessed by some kind of Fey lord, innocent people being possessed by them and not wanting to just, stab them in the heart. Or maybe the PCs do stab these innocent people and they're looked at as murderers, and the Fey creatures just like, flow out of the body and they're like, ha ha, we got you, as they kill these innocent people to try to break them out of these enchantments and such. So anyway, I'm going to end it here. I'm DBJ. This is RPG with DBJ. Wow. Thank you for joining me. I'm a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing, so check that out. Critical Hit Publishing, we do 5th edition supplements. My baby is the Cinematic Environs, which basically are books that are dedicated, supplements that are dedicated completely to using the 3rd pillar. Each of the natural elements is coming out. I'm still writing those. When I'm not going live, I'm writing into that, whether it's the subterranean, swamp and jungles is coming, cityscapes is coming, battlefields as well. So that's coming. Also, we have releases for Call of Cthulhu in the same style. So check that out. Rickard says, hey, DBJ, are you online on Discord from time to time? Not as often as I would like, but yes, I think I should really start to schedule it. And the only reason I'm not on the Discord, it's not because I don't want to. It's like I work 6 days a week and I don't know when I'm getting off of work. So, and I'm a letter carrier. I deliver mail in the States. So I can't be on my phone because I drive. most of the days, and then when I'm not driving, I'm walking up and down the street, so I can't be on my phone, and by rules I'm not allowed to be. So it's all those complications. Then when I get home, it's, it's family time. So it's just very it, let's put it this way. It's not because I don't want to, it's because I dive into it and I want to be part and parcel of it. So yeah, so I'm not on it very often. Sometimes, like, especially Vince and Jared and some others have like really pointed me to the Discord, like, hey, DBJ, there's something important in the Discord, in which case I will check it out. But in general, I don't, which is my own fault, and I'm not really proud of it. So yes, there's the Discord. No, I'm not on it very often, but yes, if someone points me to the Discord, I will jump in and check things out and try to get some information thereof. So yeah. Yeah, Rickard says, yeah, it can definitely eat up some time. Yeah, which is why, like, I'm not on Twitch, Instagram, like, although it becomes it's bad enough that I dip into Facebook, social media. I mean, hell, YouTube is technically social media, so it's just, it can take a lot of time. If I had a social media consultant, maybe they'd help me out, or if I had a different job, maybe. Give it 7 years, when I retire, then I'll be able to jump into this far more often. But right now, yeah, sorry. But so, guys, thank you very much. By the way, I'm gonna plug a little bit. Blasphemous Abominations, the Lich. This is a hard. Wow, what happened? There it goes. This is a hardback release from us at Critical Hit Publishing. It's all about the Lich. It's a print on demand, drive-through RPG, all about the Lich. You know what? I should have did I don't know why I didn't do my own page through or whatever. But that's right. I actually did. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Everyone, have a great day. Ooh, shoot. Almost knocked down everything. Thank you for joining me. Rickard, Dead Man, always glad to have you guys here. I will see thee tomorrow for Third Pillar Thursday. Everyone have a great day. See ya. Bye.